This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
We're back in the lab. Reggie and Luke back at it. Another episode of Superior Sports Talk presented by Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm going back to the bullpen after an impressive outing with Sam Ekstrom. We're going to test that stamina. What's going on?
2 days in a row. Woo! This isn't very responsible bullpen management.
Not
I think
at all.
I want to talk to my pitching coach about this.
Absolutely. Lots to discuss today. Of course, starting with the Minnesota Wilds, we got Detroit Lions and draft expert Russell Brown from Woodward Sports coming in to help us break down the new look NFC North after draft weekend. Plus, later on, I'm putting Sam on the hot seat with what does it mean? It's all coming up on Superior Sports Talk. But first, make sure to check out our other daily show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's the Ron Johnson Show, featuring former Gophers and NFL receiver Ron Johnson and producer, who else? Sam Ekstrom. Get the daily opinions of an athlete turned broadcaster. Ron Johnson tells it like it is, whether it's Vikings, Gophers, Wolves, or Twins. Subscribe to the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel or podcast feeds so you never miss an episode. All right. Well, Sam, you did a great job yesterday helping a novice hockey mind like myself cope with that brutal loss the Wild took versus the Blues Monday. And now they have a chance to respond and rebound in a big way tonight. As we discussed yesterday, we were both disappointed not to see Talbot behind the net in Game 1. It feels like a virtual lock if he gets the nod in Game 2 after watching Fleury give up 4 goals, right? I mean, is there any chance Talbot's not your starting goaltender tonight in what now feels like a must-win game for the Wild?
I think there's a chance he's not.
Okay.
I would go Talbot, I laid that out on the show, that I just think it would be a good shakeup to just change the vibe, change the mojo, get another good goaltender in there with sort of a fresh mindset. But I get, if you want to ride Marc-Andre Fleury, you believe in him, you believe that he'll bounce back, you believe that the players in front of him will play a little better and give him some more support. And you don't want to be too wishy-washy in your decision-making if you want to stay really convicted. I understand why they might stick with Fleury. So I would not call it a lock, but I think it's 50-50 at this point. I think that it's a coin flip on who starts. I certainly would think if 4 more goals get scored on Fleury this time and they lose and they're going to St. Louis, then I think you pull the plug and you go to Talbot. But I think that we might see Fleury one more time. I don't know, Luke, which is the most honest answer I can give, but I think it's up in the air, honestly.
I go off of baseball starting pitchers. We know well in advance. Is this the norm? Is this because it's playoff time? At what point do you expect to actually find out? When is it announced when we're going to hear who is behind net tonight?
Yeah, the Wild played this very close to the vest before Game 1. And they refused to officially confirm. I think they gave hints that it was going to be Fleury. And, oftentimes at morning skate, which is happening, I think, as we speak, there's some indication with, which goalie is taking, think about a football practice, Luke, the first team reps. They sort of have a hierarchy for how the goalies take their reps. And even if the team doesn't officially tell us, what happens at morning skate might indicate who's going to start. And I think that news would drop probably in a couple hours from the time we're recording this. And when people watch this, they might know, they might not, for sure. But I think the team wants to keep the Blues on their toes because there is a different strategy for how you might approach Talbot versus Fleury. They have their strengths and weaknesses, and there's certain ways you'd want to shoot the puck at each respective goaltender. But the Wild would like to create as much uncertainty as possible.
I want to get into that little X's and O's, if you will, later on. But first, Sam, I know come playoff time, everyone is banged up. It's just part of the process, right? Grinding through a long regular season, almost unheard of not to have at least a few dings at this point. And you're just forced to make the proper adjustments. You hope your depth can hold strong. But are injuries quietly playing a bigger factor in this team's performance than maybe most fans are realizing right now? I mean, if the Wild lose this series, will that be something you look back and say, if only they were a little more healthy, that could have made a huge difference?
Yeah, hockey's one of those sports where a lot of times after the season, you find out some guy was playing with a torn labrum or a sprained MCL. And hockey is probably one of the most secretive sports about injuries as well. All they do is upper body, lower body, right? They don't really give you a body part. You don't really know what's going on because it's such a physical game. You don't want to expose your players to punishment if teams are targeting their shoulder or their knee or what have you. I know Jared Spurgeon had to come back from an injury late in the season. Don't know about his health. Marcus Foligno had an apparent knee injury in the season finale, and he played in that game on Monday night. No way he's 100%. I mean, he's gutting through something. That's a key defenseman. That's a key forward. Jordan Greenway was banged up toward the end of the year too. And in the sport of hockey, 82 games, that type of physicality, a lot of guys are playing banged up. So there's probably stuff we don't know about as well. But I do know that with Foligno and Spurgeon, those are two of your team leaders. If they're not at 100%, you could definitely see that affecting this group. And Spurgeon, too, seemed frustrated on Monday, out of sorts. He fortunately avoided a suspension when he hacked a guy in the legs with his stick. I think he's going to have to pay a fine for that. But we'll see what happens tonight. I mean, I think the key, Luke, is honestly get a goal on the board early and just get that shutout out of your mind, right?
You mentioned pending who's in net for the Wild may influence or impact the Blues game plan. Huge football nerd here, as you know. Love the X's and O's part of the game, creating the game plan leading into the week, the in-game halftime adjustments, et cetera, et cetera. In hockey, how much of the X's and O's play a factor? Like, how much film grinding is there? And is there any actual adjustments you expect the Wild to make tonight or think they need to make tonight? Or in hockey, is it just put your best players out on the ice and let them rip?
Yeah, I think it's a fairly simplistic breakdown of Monday's game. Their power play was great. Our power play was crap. That's what Dean Evason's going to say in the film. And there's probably more nuance than that. And Luke, I've had, I announced St. Thomas hockey games, and I've had the privilege of sitting in some college hockey film sessions. You wouldn't believe the detail that these coaches can go into with their players, teaching technique, body positioning, how to go after a puck, how to absorb a check, how to distribute a check. Like, there's so much more to hockey. If you're like us, you don't play the game, you might not realize. But I think that when you get down to it, Monday's game came down to the power play. Wednesday's game, tonight's game, could easily come down to the power play. And I'm going to say something radical, Luke. I mean, stop the presses. This is a hot take.
Here we go.
I would almost prefer if the Wild don't have a power play for a while in this game. I would prefer them 5-on-5. And here's why. Number one, their analytics are extremely strong 5-on-5. That's one of their strengths, is when they are, man-to-man against the other team. They seem to have this extra something. I don't want them to have an early power play. The way the power play is going, they could easily fail on that power play and get in the fans' head, in the team's head, create tension early in the game. I would rather see them skate a full period 5-on-5 and just see what happens, because that's where this team really can shine. I don't want them to go 0 for 2 in the first 7 minutes of the game on the power play, and then suddenly you're feeling that deja vu all over again. I'd like to see something a little different.
We all know the Blues have turned into the Wild's kryptonite, playing 4 games this season. They lose all 4. You mentioned an even better stat yesterday, noting it's even actually worse than that. Last 14 games, Blues are 12-1-1 versus the Wild. You come out, you get throttled on home ice in game 1. Just how critical is this game tonight for a variety of reasons? I mean, are we in must-win territory already?
I'm not going to say must, and here's why. Home ice in the hockey playoffs probably means less than any other sport. Hockey's the most random game. You get 8 seeds, 7 seeds going on runs way more often than you would in basketball, for instance, and you see upsets much more often in hockey. And that happens because home ice is just a little less sacred in hockey playoffs. Hard to explain why that is. But home ice doesn't seem to have as much impact in the postseason, which is odd because in the regular season, it seems to have a great amount of impact. The Wild's home record was unbelievable this year. So was the Blues' home record. For whatever reason, you kind of throw that out in the playoffs. So if you go down 0-2, you're in deep trouble, Luke. Don't get me wrong. Then you got to win 4 out of 5. But I don't think if the Blues can come here and win too, the Wild certainly can go to St. Louis and win as well. I don't think that's impossible, but still winning 4 out of 5, if you think of what you would need to do in that situation, requiring you probably to win 2 in St. Louis's place. Yeah, you'd have to win 2 there. That is a tough task. And just beating a team 4 out of 5 of that caliber is difficult. So I'm not saying must win, but you'd like to win. You hope to win. And if you don't, you're probably gripping the sticks pretty tightly in game 3.
Wild look to leave Minnesota with a split tonight with the Blues before heading back to St. Louis to face off in game 3 Friday. Puck drop tonight, not until 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on ESPN. Sam better sneak in a little cat nap. Going to be a long night for Wild fans. Later on, I'm putting Sam on the hot seat with what does it mean. But first, do you want some smart post-game reaction from insiders that cover your favorite teams? Check out our Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Get instant reactions from our Locked On team hosts, along with prominent reporters like Kevin Gorg for the Wild and Brandon Warren for the Twins. No fluff, just 10 minutes of straight analysis after each game. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube and never miss a podcast. All right, the time has come. My favorite segment is here. I'm putting Sam on the hot seat, covering all the latest hot topics in Minnesota sports called What Does It Mean? Sam, you ready to roll?
Let's do it.
So we just spoke about it in segment 1. The Wild announced that Marc-Andre Fleury is your starter behind the net tonight in game 2. Sam,
all right,
I'll just lay it out pretty simply. What does it mean?
It means that they're putting faith in the guy they traded for. And they are confident that their defense is going to play better in front of him, and that they're going to ride with him. Now, I still think that if he struggles tonight, that you could see a change before game 3, but I understand why a coaching staff wouldn't want to yank their prize goaltender after one game. So while I was a little more on the Talbot train, as people know, I understand that you're sticking to your guns and you're believing in a guy who's been doing this at a high level for 15 years. So I respect the move, and we'll see if it backfires or if it pays off. But we were wondering if the Wild would take this down to the wire with the decision. Mm-hmm. They just came out flat and said, we believe in Marc-Andre Fleury. So there you go.
Next one. What does it mean with Sam? Twins won their 12th game in 13 meetings, moving to 6 games above 500 and first place in the Central Division. Offensively, they've outscored their opponents 63-25 during that stretch and 25-7 during their latest 4-game win streak. They've done all this with virtually any production from Miguel Sano, who now finds himself on the DL with a torn meniscus he suffered, celebrating a win versus the Tigers. What does it mean for Sano's chances to return to the lineup when healthy and become an integral part of the Twins lineup like he once was? Or, Sam, are the days of Sano in a Twins uniform just quickly coming to an end now?
I think Miguel Sano has played his last game as a Twin.
Wow.
I'm saying that.
Wow, you said it. Wow.
I'm saying that. So
wow.
He's hitting 093.
Not
093. He's 5 for 54.
Not bad. It's he's coming around here, though.
They say that below 200 is the Mendoza line. I wonder what below 100 is there. Is there a line? Is below freezing? That's for sure. So he's potentially a free agent after this year. The team has a club option on his contract, so sort of like the 5th-year option with Garrett Bradbury. I don't think that team's picking that option up. Miguel Sano has regressed into a liability on defense. He is a liability on the base paths because he's lost a lot of his speed, and he's a liability at the plate. He strikes out an inordinate amount, and I will give him credit for 1 to 2 months a year figuring out his swing, putting together a streak, and he might even win the team a couple games during that stretch. But if Byron Buxton is a 5-tool player, Miguel Sano is a 1-tool player. Mm-hmm. He is a home run threat occasionally, but we've gone through this too many times, starting the year slowly to the point where you're expecting strikeouts every time he gets to 2 strikes in the count. I don't know the severity of the meniscus surgery. Sometimes these guys can bounce back quickly if they just cut the thing, if they shave it. Peterson had this for the Vikings in 16, where the recovery could be short, could be long. But I'm not sure that you put this guy back in the lineup immediately anyway. I think this could be a long injured list stint, and I'm calling it. Miguel Sano will not play for the big league club again.
There it is. You heard it first here from Twins general manager Sam Ekstrom. Next one up, the NFL has announced there will be 4 games played in London this season, including the Minnesota Vikings taking on the New Orleans Saints. What does it mean when looking at the Vikings schedule, just in a broader lens, Sam, and just how difficult is it for a team to make this trip over the pond?
Yeah, I'm glad that they're not losing a home game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you
That's
would hate
huge. That's huge.
And I feel bad for New Orleans losing a home game too, because this is a great rivalry in the league. This has turned into, and I know that Breeze is gone, Peyton is gone, Michael Thomas, don't know about him at this point. Zimmer is gone, like Diggs is gone. All of the characters that were involved in that, Minneapolis Miracle are kind of, no longer on these franchises, but there's still a lot of history with the Vikings and Saints, and this might be like a primetime game if it was played in the States. So I feel bad that you don't get that home atmosphere in the Superdome or US Bank Stadium, what have you. I think what this tells me, though, is the Vikings might have an early bye, because oftentimes teams that go to London get the bye the week after. And that could mean a week 5 bye for the Vikings. That's a little too early for my liking, Luke, because that means you got to play 12 in a row after your October 9th bye week, if I'm doing that math right. So in that sense, that's not great. I would much rather have a middle of the season bye. But New Orleans also doesn't particularly scare me as a club anymore. I mean, they've got a new coach. They don't have Breeze. It's probably going to be Winston. I don't know about the depth of that roster any longer. So this could be a good chance for the Vikings to take advantage of sort of a neutral crowd instead of having to go play in a tough environment and get a win against a team that ordinarily has been hard to beat.
Just for the NFL, what a cool concept. They've been doing this now for a handful of years, really broadening the scope again of just the regions that they're touching. So many NFL fans around the world. Really cool to see, but logistically for a team, I think it's been said it's kind of a nightmare to have to pack everything up, make such a long trip, and then head back home. Like you said, you get that early bye week, which kind of a bummer there as well. But Vikings 2-0 in London games. They're looking for their 3rd victory. Remember, they beat the Steelers, probably 6-7 years ago against Big Ben, and then the Cleveland Browns, I think that was maybe 3 years ago as well. So this is not their first trip over there. They've had quite a bit of success over there in London. We'll see how it all shakes out. Last one. What does it mean with Sam? To many fans' dismay, Tennessee Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill said it's not his job to mentor Malik Willis in yesterday's press conference. What does it mean when trying to evaluate Tannehill's comments and how it reflects on him as being a team player and role model for this new rookie backup? Or is he taking too much heat for this, would you think, Sam?
We've been going through this forever, basically since Brett Favre kind of shunned Aaron Rodgers in the mid-2000s. It seems like every incumbent quarterback who has to mentor a rookie is put in this spot to answer the question. I can see where that would be frustrating. That being said, it's not that hard to say the right thing, the humble thing in front of the cameras, and then you can do whatever you want, honestly, behind the scenes. Like you don't need to be a jerk, and you also don't need to spend every waking moment with them. Like these guys have so many meetings as a group, and they collaborate so often in that quarterback room that I don't know if you necessarily need to have tutoring sessions with these rookie quarterbacks. They have quarterback coaches, offensive coordinators, head coaches. There are also other backup quarterbacks. So why does it need to be on the starting quarterback to have like extra time to mentor somebody? Just go about your business, and there will be plenty of opportunities to impart wisdom along the way. I guess it's an honest answer from Tannehill, and you can tell, and obviously he wants to keep his job. The Titans have played very well with Tannehill as their quarterback. I'm sure Tennessee's having the same conversations though as Minnesota. They're saying, can this guy really win a Super Bowl? And the answer to that might be no. And I think Willis is an exciting player. But I don't think Tannehill really owes him all that much.
No, very well said. Sam, you survived the gauntlet. Back here tomorrow, recapping game 2 of the Minnesota Wild and breaking down your Daily Twins recap as they go for their 13th win in 14 games in Baltimore. Dylan Bundy on the mound taking on his former team, the Baltimore Orioles. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and join us every day for another episode covering all the biggest topics in Minnesota sports. He's Sam Ekstrom. Follow him on Twitter at Sam Ekstrom. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Tune in tomorrow to Superior Sports Talk, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. For Sam, I'm Luke. Until tomorrow, signing out.
This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota.